Eleanor stood in the drawing room with her head bowed. Her aunt's voice cut through the air like a whip. The words hurt more than any physical blow ever could. 3 young men sat on the velvet sofas before her. Each one wore fine clothes and held himself with pride. They were the sons of an earl. They had come to meet her, to see if she might make a suitable wife. "As you can see, gentlemen, she is plain," her aunt said. The woman walked around Eleanor like she was examining a horse at market. Her face is too round. Her hair is that dreadful brown color, not even a hint of gold in it, and she is nearly 23 years old, quite on the shelf, I'm afraid. Eleanor kept her eyes on the floor. She had learned not to look up during these moments. Looking up only made things worse. Her fingers gripped the fabric of her grey dress. The dress was old and worn. Her aunt never bought her new clothes. Why waste money on someone so worthless? "Does she have any accomplishments?" the oldest son asked. His voice was bored. He had already decided against her. Eleanor could hear it in his tone. "She reads," her aunt said with a sniff. "Too much, if you ask me. It has given her ideas above her station. She plays the pianoforte poorly. Her needlework is adequate. Nothing more." The second son laughed. It was not a kind sound. "My father said she comes with a small dowry." "Very small, I understand. £2,000, her aunt said. She made it sound like 2 pennies. Her father left her that much before he died. It is all she has in the world. Well, that and the charity of my household." Eleanor felt her cheeks burn. Charity. That word again. Her aunt used it like a weapon. Eleanor had lived with her aunt for 5 years. Ever since her father died and left her with nowhere else to go. Her mother had died when Eleanor was born. Her father had been a gentleman, but not a wealthy one. When he passed, his small estate went to a distant cousin. Eleanor got only the £2,000. It was enough for a modest life. It was not enough to make her desirable. The third son stood up. He was the youngest of the 3. He looked at Eleanor with cold eyes. "I think we have seen enough. Thank you for your time, Lady Ashford." Her aunt smiled. It was the smile of someone who had expected this outcome. "Of course. I shall have tea sent to you before you depart." The 3 brothers left the room. They did not say goodbye to Eleanor. They did not acknowledge her at all. She was nothing to them. Less than nothing. Just another plain girl with a tiny dowry and no prospects. When the door closed, her aunt turned on her. "You did not even try to smile. You stood there like a block of wood. Is it any wonder no one wants you?" "I apologize, Aunt," Eleanor said softly. "Apologize? What good are apologies?" Her aunt's face twisted with anger. "You have been in my home for 5 years. 5 years of feeding you and housing you. And what do I get in return? Nothing. You cannot even attract a husband. Those were the sons of an earl, Eleanor. An earl, and they rejected you just like all the others." Eleanor said nothing. There was nothing to say. 12 men had come to meet her in the past 2 years. 12 men had walked away. Some had been cruel about it. Others had simply looked through her as if she were invisible. The result was always the same. She was not good enough. "Go to your room," her aunt said with a wave of her hand. "I cannot bear to look at you right now." Eleanor curtsied and left quickly. She walked through the cold hallway of her aunt's London townhouse. The walls were covered in expensive paper. The floors gleamed with polish. Everything in this house was beautiful. Everything except her. Her room was small. It was at the back of the house, near the servants' quarters. The bed was narrow. The wardrobe held only 3 dresses. All of them were grey or brown. Her aunt said bright colors would be wasted on someone with Eleanor's complexion. The single window looked out onto the back garden. Eleanor could see the stable from here. Sometimes she watched the horses and wished she could run away like they did when they were let loose in the country. She sat on her bed and let herself cry, not loud sobs that anyone might hear, just quiet tears that slid down her cheeks and dripped onto her hands. She had learned to cry silently. Loud crying made her aunt angry. Eleanor thought about the three brothers. They had been handsome, well-dressed, confident. They had looked at her with disgust, or worse, with pity. She wondered what was wrong with her. Why could no one see past her plain face? Why did no one care that she was kind, that she loved books and music, that she had dreams and hopes just like anyone else? But she knew the answer. In this world, kindness did not matter if you were not beautiful. Dreams meant nothing if you had no money. Hope was a luxury for people with prospects. She wiped her eyes and stood. Crying would not change anything. She walked to the small mirror on the wall. She looked at herself. Round face, brown hair pulled back in a simple knot, brown eyes that were red from crying, pale skin, thin lips. She was plain. Her aunt was right about that. But was she truly so ugly? Or had she just been told that so many times that she believed it? Eleanor turned away from the mirror. It did not matter. Beautiful or ugly, the result was the same. No one wanted her. Downstairs, she heard the sound of a carriage leaving. The three brothers were gone. They would go back to their father's estate and tell him about the plain girl with the tiny dowry. The Earl would nod and forget she ever existed. They would find other wives, pretty girls with large dowries and important families, girls who mattered. Eleanor sat at the tiny desk in the corner of her room. She pulled out a piece of paper. Writing helped. When she felt like this, she wrote poetry sometimes, or little stories. They were not very good, but they were hers. They were the only things in her life that belonged to her alone. She had just picked up her pen when she heard shouting from downstairs. Her aunt's voice rang through the house. "What do you mean?" "Another one." Eleanor set down her pen. She crept to her door and opened it a crack. She could hear her uncle now. He had been out when the brothers visited. A letter arrived from the Earl. Her uncle said. He sounded tired. He always sounded tired. He was a kind man who had married a cruel woman. Eleanor felt sorry for him. He has a fourth son. The man has been away at war for 6 years. He returned home 3 days ago. The Earl wants to give him a chance to meet Eleanor as well. "This is ridiculous," her aunt snapped. "The first 3 rejected her. Why would the 4th be any different? Especially a soldier. They are rough men with rough tastes. He will take one look at her and laugh." "The Earl insists," her uncle said, "and I think we should agree. If Eleanor can marry into that family, it would be good for all of us. The connections alone would be valuable." There was a long silence. Then her aunt spoke again. Her voice was calculating now. "When does he want to meet her?" "Tomorrow. He will come here at 2 in the afternoon." Eleanor closed her door quietly. She leaned against it and closed her eyes. Another rejection, another humiliation, but she had no choice. Her aunt would make her do it. She always did. She thought about this 4th son, a soldier who had been at war for 6 years. He was probably scarred and brutal. War changed men. She had heard the servants talk about it. Soldiers came home with haunted eyes and violent tempers. This one would probably be worse than his brothers. At least they had been polite in their rejection. Eleanor went back to her desk. She tried to write, but the words would not come. She sat there until the light faded from the window, until the house grew quiet, until she was alone with her thoughts and her fears. Tomorrow would bring another wound, another reminder that she was not enough. She would bear it like she bore everything else, with silence and dignity, because that was all she had left. The night stretched long and dark before her. Sleep did not come easily. When it finally did, she dreamed of running, of a place where no one judged her, where she could be herself without shame. But dreams were just dreams. Tomorrow she would wake up and face reality once more. The next afternoon, Eleanor stood in the drawing room again. Her aunt had spent the morning criticizing everything about her. Her dress was wrong. Her hair was wrong. Her posture was wrong. Nothing Eleanor did was ever right. Now she waited for the fourth son to arrive. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her head was up this time. Her aunt had insisted, "At least try to look like you have some spirit," the woman had said. The clock on the mantel ticked. Each second felt like an hour. Eleanor wished she could be anywhere else, but there was no escape. This was her life. She heard the sound of a carriage outside, heavy footsteps on the front stairs, the butler's voice in the hall. Then the drawing room door opened. Eleanor looked up and forgot to breathe. The man who entered was nothing like his brothers. He was tall, yes, broad-shouldered, yes, but there was something different about him, something in his eyes. They were grey, like storm clouds. They had seen terrible things, but they were not cruel. They were sad. He wore his uniform still, dark blue with silver buttons. His hair was black, cut short. There was a scar on his left cheek. It ran from his eye to his jaw. It should have made him frightening. Instead, it made him seem human, real, not like the polished perfection of his brothers. He looked at Eleanor, really looked at her, not through her, not at her dress or her hair or her plain face, at her, into her eyes, like he was searching for something. "Miss Eleanor Hartley?" His voice was deep, rough from shouting orders on battlefields, but gentle somehow. "Yes, my lord," Eleanor said. Her voice came out as a whisper. He crossed the room. Each step was measured. He moved like a soldier, like someone always ready for danger. But when he reached her, he stopped at a respectful distance. He bowed. It was a proper bow, not mocking, not perfunctory, respectful. "I am Captain James Ashworth," he said, "fourth son of the Earl of Thornfield. I apologize for the intrusion. I know you met my brothers yesterday." Eleanor felt her cheeks flush. "Yes, my lord." "James," he said, "please, I have not been called my lord in 6 years. It sounds strange to my ears now." Her aunt swept into the room. Then she had been hovering in the hallway. "Captain Ashworth, how good of you to come. Please sit. I shall have tea brought in." James glanced at her aunt. Something flickered in his eyes. Eleanor could not name it. Then he looked back at Eleanor. "Would you mind if we spoke alone for a moment?" "With the door open, of course. I simply wish to speak with Miss Hartley without an audience." Her aunt's eyes narrowed, but she could not refuse without being rude. "Very well. I shall be just outside." She left. But Eleanor knew she would be listening at the door. James waited until her footsteps faded. Then he spoke quietly. "I understand my brothers rejected you." Eleanor looked down. Shame washed over her. "Yes. May I ask why?" "They found me unsuitable," Eleanor said. The words tasted bitter. "I am plain. My dowry is small. I have no accomplishments of note." "I see." He was quiet for a moment. When Eleanor dared to glance up, she found him watching her with those storm-grey eyes. "May I be honest with you, Miss Hartley?" "Of course." "I did not want to come here today," he said. "I have been home for 3 days. My father has spent every hour trying to marry me off. He has paraded 6 young women in front of me. Each one was beautiful. Each one had a large dowry. Each one smiled at me like I was a prize to be won." Eleanor did not know what to say to that. "I rejected all of them," James continued. "Do you know why?" She shook her head. "Because they did not see me," he said. "They saw my title, my father's wealth. They saw a path to a comfortable life. But when they looked at me, they did not see James. They saw Captain Ashworth, or worse, they saw the 4th son of an Earl." Eleanor understood that feeling, being invisible while people looked right at you. "When my father told me about you, he said you were plain," James said. "He said your dowry was tiny. He said you were desperate. He told me I could do better." Each word struck like a blow. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I came here because of that," James said. "Because I thought perhaps someone who had been rejected might understand what it feels like to be seen as not enough." Eleanor looked up at him then. Really looked. She saw the exhaustion in his face, the lines around his eyes, the way he held his shoulders tight, like he was carrying a weight no one else could see. This was a man who had suffered, who knew pain, who understood what it meant to be broken. "You are not plain," he said quietly. "You have kind eyes, sad eyes, but kind." Eleanor felt something crack inside her chest. No one had ever said anything like that to her, ever. "I have a proposal," James said. "Not a marriage proposal, not yet, but a proposal nonetheless." "I am listening," Eleanor whispered. "I need to marry," he said. "My father insists. He says it is my duty to the family. I have argued with him for 3 days. He will not relent. So I will marry, but I wish to marry someone real, someone who will not pretend with me, someone who understands that life is not a fairy tale." He paused. Then he said, "Would you be willing to marry me, Miss Hartley? Not for love. I do not believe in love anymore, but for companionship, for honesty, for a partnership built on respect rather than lies." Eleanor stared at him. This could not be real. Men did not propose to her, especially not men like him. "You would have your own rooms," he continued, "your own space. I would not force myself upon you. I would treat you with kindness. In return, I ask only that you be yourself. No pretending, no games, just honesty." "Why?" Eleanor asked. "Why me? Because you are the first person I have met since coming home who looked at me with understanding instead of expectation," he said. "Because when I walked in here and saw you standing there afraid and trying to be brave, I recognized myself." Eleanor's mind raced. This was insane. She barely knew this man. But what choice did she have? Stay with her aunt and face more humiliations, more rejections? Or take a chance on this scarred soldier who spoke of honesty and partnership? "I need to think," she said. "Of course." He reached into his coat and pulled out a card. "This is where I am staying. Send word by tomorrow evening. If you agree, we will marry quickly, within the week. If you refuse, I will respect your decision and trouble you no more." He bowed again. Then he turned to leave. "Captain Ashworth," Eleanor said. Her voice was stronger now. He turned back. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me." Something softened in his face. Almost a smile, but not quite. "Thank you for not running away when you saw my scar." Then he was gone. The door closed behind him. Eleanor stood alone in the drawing room. Her heart pounded. Her hands shook. Everything had changed in the span of 10 minutes. Her aunt burst in. "Well, what did he say?" "He asked me to marry him," Eleanor said. Her aunt's mouth fell open. For once, she had no words. Eleanor savored the moment. Then she walked past her aunt and up the stairs to her room. She sat at her desk and stared at the card he had left. Captain James Ashworth. She traced the letters with her finger. This man had offered her an escape. Not a love story, not a rescue, but a partnership, a chance at a different life. Was it enough? Could she marry a stranger? A man haunted by war? But then, what was the alternative? Eleanor picked up her pen. She pulled out a fresh piece of paper. She began to write a letter. Her hand did not shake. Her words were clear. By the time she finished, she knew her answer. She would marry him, not for love, not for romance, but for the chance to be seen, to be treated with respect, to be something other than a burden. It was more than she had ever hoped for. It would have to be enough. The next morning, she sent her letter. By evening, she had his reply. They would marry in 5 days. A quiet ceremony. No fuss. Just two broken people making a bargain. Eleanor packed her few belongings. She did not tell her aunt how grateful she was to be leaving. She did not say she would miss this house. She would not. This place had been a prison. On the day of the wedding, she wore a simple dress. Not white. Blue. The only nice dress she owned. James wore his uniform. They stood before a vicar in a small church. There were no guests, no flowers, no celebration. When the vicar said they were man and wife, James took her hand. His grip was warm, strong. He looked at her and nodded. It was a promise. He would keep his word. They left the church as husband and wife, Captain and Mrs. James Ashworth. Eleanor did not feel any different, but when they stepped into the carriage that would take them to his estate, she realized something had changed. She was no longer alone. For better or worse, she had a partner now. Someone who had promised honesty, someone who had seen her and not turned away. It was not love, but it was a beginning. The Ashworth estate was called Thornfield Manor. It sat in the countryside, 3 hours from London. Eleanor watched through the carriage window as they approached. The house was beautiful, made of grey stone, covered in ivy, surrounded by gardens and woods. It looked like something from a painting. James sat across from her in the carriage. He had been quiet during the journey. Eleanor had not tried to make conversation. She did not know what to say to this man who was now her husband. When the carriage stopped, James stepped out first. He turned and offered her his hand. Eleanor took it. His palm was rough, calloused, the hand of a soldier, but his touch was gentle. "Welcome to Thornfield," he said. A small staff waited at the entrance. An older woman stepped forward. She had kind eyes and grey hair pulled back in a bun. "Mrs. Ashworth," she said with a curtsy. "I am Mrs. Fletcher, the housekeeper. We are so pleased to have you here." Eleanor smiled. It felt strange. She could not remember the last time someone had been pleased to see her. Mrs. Fletcher showed her through the house. The rooms were large and comfortable, not cold and formal like her aunt's house. There were worn rugs and faded curtains, pictures of family on the walls. It felt lived in. It felt like a home. "These are your rooms," Mrs. Fletcher said, opening a door. Eleanor stepped inside and gasped. The room was lovely. A large bed with soft blankets, a wardrobe, a desk by the window. The window looked out over the gardens. She could see roses and lavender. Birds sang in the trees. "Captain Ashworth's rooms are next door," Mrs. Fletcher said. "There is a connecting door, but it locks from your side." He insisted on that. Eleanor felt her cheeks warm. James had kept his promise already. She had her own space. "Thank you," Eleanor said. "It is beautiful." Mrs. Fletcher smiled. "Dinner will be at 7. If you need anything, just ring." She pointed to a bell pulled by the bed. When the housekeeper left, Eleanor sat on the bed. It was soft, softer than anything she had slept on in years. She lay back and stared at the ceiling. This was her room, her home. She was married to a man she barely knew, but a man who had been kind, who had kept his word. She heard footsteps in the next room. James was in there, her husband. The word felt foreign, strange, but not frightening. Not yet. There was a knock at the connecting door. "Eleanor, may I come in?" She sat up. Yes. The door opened. James stood in the doorway. He had changed out of his uniform. He wore simple clothes now, a white shirt and dark trousers. He looked younger without the military jacket, more human. "I wanted to make sure you were settled," he said.
"I am, thank you."
"The room is lovely." He nodded. "I am glad you like it." He paused. "I know this is strange. We are strangers, yet we are married. I want you to know that I meant what I said. You have your own life here, your own space. I will not intrude." "Thank you," Eleanor said. "We will have dinner together," he said. "I think it is important that we talk, get to know each other. But after dinner, you may retire whenever you wish. There is no obligation." Eleanor studied him. He seemed nervous. This strong soldier who had survived war seemed nervous about talking to her. It made her feel a little braver. "I would like to have dinner with you," she said. "I would like to know you better." Relief crossed his face. "Good. I would like that too." He left then. The door closed softly. Eleanor sat there for a long moment. Then she stood and went to the wardrobe. She opened it and found new dresses inside, beautiful dresses in colors she had never worn, blue and green, and even a deep rose. She ran her fingers over the fabric. It was soft, expensive. She had bought her clothes, new clothes, in colors. Her eyes filled with tears. It was such a small thing, but it meant he had thought of her. He had wanted her to have something nice. Eleanor chose a green dress for dinner. It fit perfectly. She looked at herself in the mirror. The color made her skin look warmer, her eyes brighter. She looked different, not beautiful, but not plain either. Just different. At 7, she went downstairs. A servant showed her to the dining room. It was smaller than she expected. The table could seat 12, but it was set for 2, at one end and one side, close together. James was already there. He stood when she entered. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "Green suits you," he said. "Thank you." She sat down. He sat beside her. Dinner was simple: roasted chicken, vegetables from the garden, fresh bread. It was the best meal Eleanor had eaten in years. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then James spoke. "Tell me about yourself. What do you enjoy?" "I like to read," Eleanor said, "and write. Poetry, sometimes, stories. Nothing very good." "I would like to read your writing someday," he said. "If you would share it." Eleanor looked at him in surprise. "Really? Really?" He took a sip of wine. "I like to read as well. There was not much time for it during the war, but before I left, I loved books. Adventure stories, history, even some poetry. What was the war like? Eleanor asked. Then she wished she could take the words back. I am sorry. That was rude. No, he said. It is a fair question. You are my wife. You should know. He set down his fork. It was terrible. Bloody. Loud. Men died every day. Some were my friends, some were strangers. After a while, you stop feeling it. You have to, or you will go mad. Eleanor saw the pain in his eyes. You did not stop feeling it, she said softly. He looked at her sharply. Then his expression softened. No, I did not. I wish I had. It would be easier. Feeling things is not weakness, Eleanor said. It is what makes us human, perhaps. He picked up his fork again. Tell me about your family, your father. Eleanor told him about her father, who had been gentle and kind, who had taught her to love books, who had died too soon, about her mother, who she never knew, about her aunt, who had taken her in, but never let her forget it was charity. James listened. He did not interrupt. He did not judge. When she finished, he said, I am sorry you were treated that way. You deserved better. Thank you, Eleanor whispered. They talked for 2 hours. About books and music. About the countryside. About nothing important. But it felt important. It felt like two people trying to build a bridge between them. When the meal ended, James stood. Thank you for dining with me. I enjoyed it. So did I, Eleanor said, and she meant it. Good night, Eleanor. Good night, James. She went up to her room. She lay in her new bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. Outside, she could hear the wind in the trees. It was peaceful, safe. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The next few weeks passed in a gentle rhythm. Eleanor woke each morning in her soft bed. She dressed in her new clothes. She explored the house and gardens. She read books from the library. She wrote at her desk by the window. James was often busy. He met with the estate manager. He rode out to check on the tenants. He worked in his study. But every evening they had dinner together. They talked about their days, about their thoughts, about small things and large things. Eleanor began to see the man behind the soldier. James was thoughtful. He cared about the people who worked his land. He made sure they had what they needed. He listened to their problems. He was fair and kind. The servants adored him. Mrs. Fletcher told Eleanor stories about how James had been as a boy, running wild through the gardens, climbing trees, always in trouble, but always apologetic after. He was such a sweet child, Mrs. Fletcher said. Then he went to war. When he came back, he was different, quieter, sadder, but still sweet. Deep down, Eleanor saw that sweetness in small moments, the way James always thanked the servants, the way he spoke gently to the horses, the way he made sure Eleanor had everything she needed without being asked. He bought her paints when he noticed her looking at the gardens like she wanted to capture them. He found a beautiful journal for her writing. He asked what books she liked and made sure the library was stocked with them. But he never asked for anything in return. He kept his distance. He was respectful, almost too respectful. Sometimes Eleanor wondered if he regretted marrying her, if he wished he had chosen one of those beautiful women his father had paraded before him. One afternoon, Eleanor was in the garden. She had set up her paints on a small table. She was trying to capture the roses. They were in full bloom, red and pink and white. They smelled like heaven. She heard footsteps on the path. James appeared. He had been riding. His hair was windswept. His cheeks were flushed. He looked alive in a way he did not usually look. "May I see?" he asked, gesturing to her painting. Eleanor hesitated. Her painting was not very good, but she nodded. He came closer. He studied the canvas. Then he smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, happier. "This is beautiful," he said. "It is not very good," Eleanor said. "It is honest," James said. "You see the flowers as they are, not as you think they should be. That is a gift." Eleanor felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you." He sat on the bench beside her table. "May I watch you paint?" "If you wish." They sat in comfortable silence. Eleanor painted. James watched. The sun moved across the sky. Birds sang. The roses swayed in the breeze. After a while, James spoke. "I am glad I married you." Eleanor's hand stilled. She looked at him. "I know that sounds strange," he said. "We barely know each other, but these past weeks have been the most peaceful I have had in years. You do not ask me to be anything but myself. That is a rare gift." "You do the same for me," Eleanor said softly. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Something neither could name, but it felt warm, safe. "Would you like to go riding tomorrow?" James asked. "I could show you the estate. There is a beautiful lake on the north side." "I have not ridden in years," Eleanor said. "I was never very good at it." "I will teach you," he said. "If you would like." Eleanor smiled. "I would like that." The next day, they went riding. James was patient. He helped her mount. He chose a gentle horse. He rode beside her, ready to help if she needed it. They rode through the woods. The trees were thick and green. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. It was like riding through a fairy tale. When they reached the lake, Eleanor gasped. It was beautiful. The water was clear and blue. Lilies floated on the surface. Dragonflies danced above them. They dismounted. James spread a blanket on the grass. They sat and watched the water. They talked about their favorite books, about places they wanted to see, about dreams they had as children. "I wanted to be a knight," James said, with a laugh. "I thought I would ride out and save people, be a hero." "You did save people," Eleanor said. "You were a soldier. You fought for your country." "I killed people," James said. His smile faded. "That is what soldiers do. We tell ourselves it is for a good cause, but at the end of the day, I took lives. That is not heroic. It is necessary perhaps, but not heroic." Eleanor reached out without thinking. She put her hand on his. "You came home," she said. "You survived. You are trying to live a good life now. That takes courage too." James looked down at her hand on his. Then he turned his palm up and laced his fingers through hers. "Thank you," he said quietly. They sat like that for a long time, holding hands, watching the water. Neither of them spoke, but words were not needed. The silence said everything. When they rode back, something had changed. They were closer, more connected. That night at dinner, James sat closer. Their arms brushed. Eleanor felt her heart beat faster. After dinner, James walked her to her room. He stopped at the door. "I enjoyed today," he said. "So did I." He hesitated. Then he said, "Eleanor, I need to tell you something." Her heart raced. "What is it?" "When I married you, I thought it would be a practical arrangement," he said. "I thought we would be companions. Nothing more, but I find myself wanting more." Eleanor could not breathe. "I am beginning to care for you," he said. "More than I expected, more than I thought I could. And I want you to know that if you do not feel the same, that is all right. I will not pressure you. But I could not be honest if I did not tell you." Eleanor stared at him. This strong, brave man looked nervous, vulnerable. He had just given her his heart, and he was terrified she would reject it. "I care for you too," she whispered. "I did not expect to, but I do." Joy flooded his face. He reached out slowly. He cupped her cheek in his hand. His thumb brushed her skin. "May I kiss you?" he asked. "Yes," Eleanor breathed. He leaned in. His lips met hers. The kiss was gentle, sweet. It tasted like hope and new beginnings. When he pulled back, they were both smiling. "Good night, Eleanor," he said. "Good night, James." She went into her room and closed the door. She leaned against it and touched her lips. She was smiling, actually smiling, and her heart felt full. She was falling in love with her husband. It was not what she had expected, but it was real, and it was wonderful. The summer passed in a haze of happiness. Eleanor had never known life could be like this. She woke each morning excited for the day. She and James rode together. They walked in the gardens. They read to each other in the library. They talked and laughed and grew closer every day. James touched her more now. Small touches, his hand on her back as they walked. His fingers brushing hers across the dinner table, a kiss on her forehead before bed. Each touch made Eleanor's heart race, made her want more. One evening, they were in the library. Eleanor was reading on the sofa. James sat in his chair, working on estate ledgers. Thunder rumbled outside. Rain began to fall. Eleanor looked up from her book. She watched James as he worked. He had taken off his jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. She could see the muscles in his forearms. A lock of dark hair had fallen across his forehead. He looked beautiful. As if feeling her gaze, he looked up. "What is it?" "Nothing," Eleanor said. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how happy I am," she said honestly. James set down his pen. He stood and crossed to her. He sat beside her, on the sofa. "So am I," he said. "I never thought I could be this happy again." "Again?" Eleanor asked. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Before the war, I was different. I believed in things, in honor and duty and love. Then I saw what people do to each other, what I did, and I stopped believing. I thought I would never feel anything good again." "But you do now?" Eleanor asked softly. "Yes." He took her hand. "Because of you. You make me remember what it is to be human, to feel joy, to hope." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. "You do the same for me. Before you, I thought I was worthless, that no one could ever want me. But you see me. You make me feel valuable." "You are valuable," James said fiercely. "You are kind and creative and strong. Anyone who could not see that was a fool." He leaned in and kissed her. This kiss was different from the others. It was deeper, more urgent. Eleanor felt heat spread through her body. She kissed him back with all the feeling in her heart. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. James rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he whispered. "I did not think I could love anyone. But I love you, Eleanor." Eleanor's heart soared. "I love you too," she said. "So much." He kissed her again, then he pulled her close. She rested her head on his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, like him. They sat like that while the storm raged outside, safe in each other's arms. Two broken people who had found each other, who had healed each other, who had fallen in love despite everything. "Will you stay with me tonight?" he asked quietly. Eleanor looked up at him. She saw the hope in his eyes, the love, the vulnerability. "Yes," she said. He stood and took her hand. He led her to his room. The room was larger than hers, but it was just as comfortable. The bed was big and covered in soft blankets. James turned to her. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I am sure," Eleanor said. He kissed her gently, then more deeply. They held each other close, and that night they became truly married. Not just in name, but in heart and body and soul. Afterward, Eleanor lay in his arms. She felt safe, cherished, loved. James stroked her hair. He kissed her temple. "I will never let anyone hurt you," he said. "I will protect you always." "I know," Eleanor whispered, "and I will love you always." They fell asleep, tangled together. Outside, the storm passed. Inside, two hearts beat as one. Autumn came to Thornfield. The leaves turned gold and red. The air grew crisp. Eleanor had never been happier. She and James were truly partners now. In everything, they ran the estate together. They made decisions together. They loved each other more with every passing day. Eleanor had changed too. She no longer saw herself as plain. She stood taller, smiled more. She wore bright colors without shame. James called her beautiful so often that she began to believe it. And when she looked in the mirror now, she saw what he saw. A woman who was loved. A woman who mattered. One morning a letter arrived. It was addressed to James. Eleanor was in the breakfast room when he opened it. She saw his face go pale. "What is it?" she asked. "My father is coming to visit," he said. His voice was tight. "He arrives tomorrow." Eleanor felt fear grip her. She had never met the Earl. James rarely spoke of him, but she knew their relationship was difficult. "It will be all right," she said. She went to him and took his hand. "We will face him together." James looked at her. Some of the tension left his face. "Yes, together." The next day the Earl of Thornfield arrived. He came in a grand carriage with servants and trunks. He swept into the house like he owned it, which Eleanor supposed he did. He was an older version of James, tall and broad, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He looked at Eleanor like she was an insect. "So this is the girl," he said, "the plain one with no dowry." Eleanor felt her old shame try to rise, but then she felt James's hand on her back, steady, supportive. "This is my wife," James said. His voice was cold. "Eleanor, Viscountess Ashworth, and you will show her respect." The Earl's eyes narrowed. "I see marriage has made you bold." "Marriage has made me happy," James said. "Something you never managed." They went into the drawing room. The Earl sat like a king. He looked around with disdain. "The house looks shabby. You need to invest more in appearances." "The house is comfortable," James said. "The tenants are well cared for. That is what matters." "The tenants?" The Earl laughed. "Since when do you care about tenants?" "Since I came home and remembered what is important," James said. The Earl turned to Eleanor. "What have you done to my son? He was never sentimental before." "I have done nothing," Eleanor said quietly. "James is his own person. He makes his own choices." Choices. The Earl spat the word. "He chose you. My other sons wanted nothing to do with you. But James the fool decided you were good enough." "That is enough," James said. He stood. "You will not speak to my wife that way." "I will speak however I please," the Earl said. "You are my son. This is my estate. You live here by my grace. Then perhaps we should leave, James said. Eleanor stared at him. He was willing to give up his home for her. The Earl looked shocked too. You would not dare. Try me, James said. I have lived through war. I have seen death. I am not afraid of you anymore. I love my wife. I will not let you hurt her. If you cannot treat her with respect, we will leave. We will make our own way. The room was silent. The Earl stared at his son. Eleanor held her breath. Finally, the Earl stood. I see I have wasted my time here. He looked at Eleanor. You have bewitched him somehow, but it will not last. He will see what you truly are eventually. He swept out of the room. They heard him shouting orders to his servants. Within an hour, he was gone. James turned to Eleanor. I am sorry you had to endure that. You defended me, Eleanor said. Her voice shook. You were willing to give up everything for me. You are everything, James said. He pulled her into his arms. This house, this title, none of it matters without you. You are my home now. Eleanor cried then. But they were happy tears. This man loved her. He chose her over his father, over his inheritance, over everything. I love you, she said. I love you so much. And I love you, he said. Always. They held each other tight. Outside the wind blew cold, but inside they were warm, safe, together. 2 days later, another letter arrived. This one was from the Earl's solicitor. James read it and started to laugh. What is it? Eleanor asked. My father has given us Thornfield, James said. The house and all the lands. He says he is washing his hands of me, but it is ours now, truly ours. Eleanor could not believe it. They had a home, a real home, that belonged to them. He meant it as a punishment, James said, but it is a gift. We can live here forever. Raise our children here. Build a life. Children? Eleanor asked softly. James looked at her. Then he smiled. Would you like children? Yes, Eleanor said. I would. He crossed to her and pulled her close. Then we will have children, and we will raise them with love. We will teach them that what matters is not appearance or wealth, but kindness, and courage, and choosing the people you love. Eleanor kissed him, long and deep. You are a good man, James Ashworth. Only because I have a good woman beside me, he said. They spent the rest of the day making plans. They would fix up the house. They would improve the farms. They would take care of their people. They would build a life worth living. That night, Eleanor stood at her window and looked out at the gardens. The roses were gone now, but she could see where they had been. In the spring, they would bloom again, just like her life had bloomed. She thought about the girl she had been, scared and ashamed, told she was worthless. She thought about the 12 men who had rejected her, about her aunt's cruel words, about all the pain she had endured, and she was grateful for it, because it had led her here, to James, to love, to a life she never dreamed possible. She heard footsteps behind her. James wrapped his arms around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? How grateful I am, Eleanor said, for everything, even the hard parts, because they brought me to you. I am grateful too, James said. My brothers rejected you. They thought you were not good enough, but they were wrong. You are everything, and I am the luckiest man alive because you chose me too. Eleanor turned in his arms. She looked up at him, at this beautiful, broken, brave man who had seen her, who had loved her, who had made her whole. I will love you forever, she said. And I will love you forever, he said. They kissed as the moon rose over Thornfield. Two people who had been rejected, who had been told they were not enough, who had found each other and discovered that together they were more than enough. They were everything. Winter came, and then spring. The roses bloomed again. Eleanor was expecting their first child. She was happy beyond measure. James doted on her. He worried over her. He loved her more fiercely with each passing day. One afternoon, a carriage arrived at Thornfield. Eleanor was in the garden, admiring the roses. She heard voices at the front of the house. Then Mrs. Fletcher came hurrying out. "Mrs. Ashworth," she said, "you have visitors. 3 gentlemen."
Eleanor went inside.
In the drawing room stood 3 men. She recognized them immediately. James's brothers. The 3 who had rejected her. They looked uncomfortable. The oldest stepped forward. "Mrs. Ashworth, we apologize for coming unannounced." "What do you want?" Eleanor asked. Her voice was cool. "We wanted to apologize," the second brother said, "for how we treated you. We were cruel and shallow. We see that now." "What made you see it?" Eleanor asked. The youngest brother spoke. "Our father told us what James did, how he stood up to him, how he was willing to give up everything for you. We realized we had been fools. We judged you on your appearance. We never saw who you truly were." Eleanor studied them. They looked sincere. But their apology came too late. It did not matter anymore. "I accept your apology," she said, "but I do not need it. I am happy. James loves me. I love him. What you think does not matter to me anymore." They looked surprised. Perhaps they had expected her to be grateful for their attention. "We also wanted to tell James something," the oldest said. "Our father has disowned all 3 of us. He says we are not worthy to be his sons. That James is the only one who understands honor." Eleanor felt no sympathy. They had judged her for being poor and plain. Now they knew what it felt like to be rejected. "James is in his study," she said. "I will tell him you are here." She found James and told him about his brothers. He looked surprised, then he sighed. "I suppose I should speak with them." "You do not have to," Eleanor said. "I know." He kissed her forehead. "But I will. They are still my brothers." He went to the drawing room. Eleanor did not follow. This was between James and his family. An hour later, James found her in the garden. He sat beside her on the bench. "They apologized," he said, "to both of us. I told them I forgive them, but things will never be the same. Do you regret that?" Eleanor asked. "No," he said. He took her hand. "They showed me who they were when they rejected you. I may forgive them, but I will not forget. You are my family now. You are now child. That is all that matters." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "They said your father disowned them." "Yes," James smiled slightly. "He is a foolish old man. He thinks power and appearance are everything, but he will die alone, while we will have each other and our children, and a life full of love." "I feel sorry for him," Eleanor said. James looked at her in surprise. "After everything he said to you?" "Yes," Eleanor said, "because he will never know what we have. He will never understand that love is worth more than any title or wealth. That is sad." James pulled her close. "You have the kindest heart," he said. "It is one of the many reasons I love you." They sat in the garden as the sun set. The roses smelled sweet. Birds sang in the trees. Inside Eleanor's womb, their child grew. The future stretched before them, bright and full of promise. Eleanor thought about the girl she had been, plain Eleanor, who no one wanted, who had been rejected 12 times, who had thought she would never be loved. She was grateful to that girl for surviving, for being brave, for taking a chance on a scarred soldier who had offered her honesty instead of romance, because that honesty had become love. That partnership had become a marriage. That chance had become a lifetime of happiness. The Earl's 3 sons had rejected her. They had thought she was not good enough. But the 4th son had seen her, had chosen her, had loved her. And that had made all the difference. Eleanor leaned against her husband. He wrapped his arms around her and their unborn child. They watched the stars come out over Thornfield, their home, their sanctuary, the place where 2 broken people had become whole, where they had learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with rejection, with pain, with being told you are not enough. Because those who endure the darkness appreciate the light so much more. Those who have been broken understand the value of being healed. Those who have been rejected know the gift of being chosen. Eleanor had been chosen by a man who had seen past her plain face to her beautiful soul, by a man who had loved her not despite her flaws, but because of her strength, by a man who had made her believe she was worthy of love. And she had chosen him too, a scarred soldier with sad eyes and a broken heart, a man who had survived war but had forgotten how to live, a man who had needed someone to see him for who he truly was. Together, they had built something beautiful, a love that had started with honesty and grown into something eternal, a partnership that had become a passion, a marriage that had become a miracle. They had proven that the world was wrong, that beauty was not in faces or fortunes, that worth was not measured in dowries or titles, that love could bloom in the most unexpected places between the most unlikely people. The Earl's 3 sons had rejected her, but the 4th had arrived from war and seen what his brothers could not see. He had seen a woman worth fighting for, worth loving, worth choosing above all else, and in choosing her, he had saved them both. Eleanor smiled as she sat in her husband's arms. She was no longer the plain, rejected girl. She was Lady Eleanor Ashworth, wife, soon to be mother, the woman who had captured the heart of a hero. She had found her happy ending, not because she had been rescued, but because she had been brave enough to take a chance, to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved love after all. And she had been right. The stars shone bright above Thornfield. The roses perfumed the air. James held Eleanor close, and their child kicked inside her. Life was good. Life was beautiful. Life was everything they had ever dreamed. They had both been rejected by the world, but they had accepted each other, and that acceptance had grown into the deepest, truest love either of them had ever known. It was not the story Eleanor had imagined for herself. It was better, because it was real, because it was earned, because it was theirs. The Earl's 3 sons had rejected her. Thank God the 4th had not.